Hey, what a beautiful day, and welcome back to another episode of the Dark But Legal Podcast. I'm your host, Chase Loupe, and today I have a very special guest. I know I say that almost every episode, but this is a man with 40 years of experience in the industry. This man gets to travel the world doing trainings and everything. He is also one of our trainers for our PPF class. And he gets to do a lot of things in this industry that are kind of behind the scenes. He was in the forefront. He was in distribution, signage, owner, operator, and everything. So my next guest on the Dark But Legal podcast is none other than Bill Stewart.
Thank you, Chase. Happy to be here. This is my first podcast, I guess official one. I don't know.
Good. I'm glad we were the first ones.
Yeah.
Great studio.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
It's come a long way up here. I know every time that you come in, we're kind of changing things up. Everything's different every time you come in.
Yeah, I go a long way back with GeoShield. They first got started over at LSU.
Yep.
And I think the warehouse was probably the size of this room.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
And the office was upstairs in a different building, and it was, yeah. But I'll tell you, hard work and perseverance and having the right suppliers and the right support goes a long way.
It definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely does. And that's something that I feel like you know all too well. I mean, 40 years of industry experience, like what is that like?
Well, first of all, it's painful to say it. And it's even more painful to hear it.
Yeah.
I think that I've seen the industry change, obviously, progress, gotten much better. I mean, when I started, it was back in the Insul film days. Those of you that hear this podcast probably don't know what that is.
What is Insul film?
Insul film was a product made at Gila River Manufacturing out in Arizona, and it was kind of it was kind of like a sister type product to back in the day Martin Processing, which was Lumar.
Okay.
But those were they were trying to compete with Lumar was a Martin Processing. Lumar was a big manufacturer at the time. At that time, nobody was really big. Let me rephrase that. Everybody was kind of getting going. 3M,
getting their feet wet.
Right, and Matico, the old original Matico, they were manufacturing product back in those days. And so Insul Film was one of the ones that had to, make its name. And then, and they have good products. Some of the flat glass I installed back in the 80s is still on the window.
Wow.
Not automotive, on flat glass.
Wow.
Yeah. So they made a few good products. And then Martin Processing was acquired. And then Insul Film was acquired. Now, the Gila River plant, to my understanding, is still operating, and it makes the Gila/Gila DIY films.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's my understanding. I don't think that's changed. And then that's when the Lumar brand and everything came up, and the distributors that used to be for Insul Film ended up becoming Lumar distributors. And I worked for them. When I worked for Calvin Hill back in the day, and that's really where that's really where I came into being on the different side of being an installer into being a distributor, and seeing how that. And he taught me how to do on the road sales, and had my little territory, 7 states. You call it little
territory.
Yeah.
And he was quite a mentor. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you.
That's crazy.
Because I've always learned there's people in your life that come along.
Yep.
And some you follow, some you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that comes back on that, opportunity opens doors.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you follow it, sometimes you don't. And in that case, I did. And there's a number of people that'll probably see this that know me that came through that same door with Calvin.
Okay.
So,
and
it was good. It was a good experience, and I got many stories with him on the road. He was frugal, building his business. We shared a room, You went to the Holiday Inn. Like, how did you find your customers? There was no internet,
Yeah.
right? There was no YouTube. There's none of that. So we'd pull into the Holiday Inn. And the Holiday Inn back in the day used to have a phone bank on the wall. And we'd take our Olfa knife and we cut out the yellow page, the glass coating and tinning. That's how you found them in the yellow pages. And that was your customer list. So every town we went to, you would do that. And eventually you would save all of them. And then we had a box that was full of maps. You know, maps, things that you open up and actually look at. Yeah. We had those and we would mark them. That's what you did at night. Sat on the bed with a Sharpie and you mark your trail where your customers were. And he would always, dinner was the hors d'oeuvres, the free hors d'oeuvres, and a couple of beers, and that was dinner. Because he did that at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
And then off you went to the next, just continue to go see your customer and built your dealer base that way.
That's crazy.
I couldn't imagine having to do that today.
Well, my question is what was the vehicle?
It was a Suburban. Old school Suburban, because we had all our stuff in the back. It was full of film samples, film boxes, tools, what you had at that time. Which, by the way, back then we could tin a car with 5 tools and a roll of paper towels. So it was definitely different than now. It still amazes me. Like just walking by your tools, everybody's that I go to.
And there's 1,000 of them on the shelf.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it changes daily because I see it. I belong to all the forums, all the groups. I say, oh, this tool, man, it's great. Okay, got to get it.
Yep.
And then the one behind it dies off. But it's tool managing tools is tricky.
Is there a tool from, those times that you wish was still a thing? Like, is there any discontinued tools?
There's plenty of them that way beyond what I used, but there's still a few that are left. And the one we used was the 5-way tool. Okay, we would take a 5-way tool and we would create the slammer. You would cut it. And then create that one, with the handle and then the blade like that.
Yeah.
That was part of that 5-way tool, and you could just cut pieces off of it. The other one was the white, I forget what it was called, the white plastic piece with the black rubber along the bottom. We would cut that at an angle, and that's how you got back into those back windows.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you had to be a little bit of an engineer as an installer, which all of them are. It amazes me some of the things I see and these guys come up with and how they do their techniques. And, we didn't have lights to see where you're cutting on the back window, so we used to stick white paper back there. So
that makes sense.
So you could see the line. Okay.
That makes
so
sense.
when I started as an installer, you couldn't, there was no such thing as heat shrinking that we knew of. There was, but we didn't know it. Okay, so we bought all your rolls you would buy in little rolls. So you would call the distributor, i.e. Calvin, and you would say, I need a 60-inch roll and I need to cut 2 8s, a couple of 6s, maybe an 18, and a 4. I'm just making them up. Just probably doesn't equal 60, but whatever. And but you knew eventually, so you go into any tint shop and they would have all these little rolls stacked up by VLT. So all my little rolls over here were 5, these were 35, these were 20. It's pretty much all you really sold. And then you would know when the car came in that back window might be a 6, a 4, another 4, and a 8. And there it started that overlap.
Oh,
does that make sense?
Shit.
That's how we did it. Because you couldn't...
That's what we were talking about in Tennessee the other day.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we didn't know that you could actually heat it. Like it would conform the way it does. And then we'd roll the car out, let it sit in the sun. And any fingers that came up, we would just push out with our homemade 5-way jammers and whatever we had. And that was how you did a back window.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a 6-piece VW back window?
No, I'd quit.
Those things were about...
be in it anymore.
If I remember right, we did those in strips of 3 to 4 inches. But back in the day, you got to remember, if somebody wanted your car tinted, that's what you got.
Yeah.
And having it micro edge and filing and all that stuff, that didn't exist. We stuck it on there, and we had an edge maybe People are going to cringe when I say this, 1/4 of an inch.
Whoa!
Now you got to remember the adhesive technology wasn't as good.
Yeah,
So if you took a micro edge back in those days, it'd peel.
that's true.
So you didn't do that. And we didn't have a lot of dot matrix. That wasn't in it. We had rubber seals that had butyl, which you know what butyl is? That's
No.
the black. I don't even think they use it as much anymore. But it was a black glue, I guess, for lack of a better term. Almost like a caulk that they used to put that's what we set the windows in with. And then they had the rubber seals around it.
Yeah.
Well, in the summer when it was really hot, you'd stick your squeegee up in there to force the film in, and that black goop would come out with it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we had different struggles than definitely that goes on now.
Yeah, it's crazy how the times kind of change with the struggles.
That's right. I remember when heat shrinking. I had my Insul film rep at the time. I had left the distribution side of it to continue to build my business, my installation company. I had a partner, so our installation company, to be fair. And he came in one day, and he said, "I just got back from California, and I saw this guy melt the window tint on the back of a VW Bug." Same one you were thinking, the real bubble, the old day bug. And of course, we're all like, "Bullshit, man, that didn't happen." Yeah, no way. That was the beginning of heat shrinking. He came back, so California started it.
No shit.
And then he showed us how he did it. He said, "I think the guy did it something like that." And then, then it started to progress. And then the distributor figured it out. And I remember some of my very first, I guess, seminar training things I did was, you're going to laugh, how to shrink the back window of an Astro van in one piece. Now, remember the old Astro vans?
Yep.
Window was what, like this big?
Yeah.
But that was always a 2-piece window,
Damn.
right? And
But
we
now
had
you've learned how
seminars.
to shrink it a little bit, and it's in one
It's
solid
nothing.
piece.
Nothing, but that was the challenge. Another one was a Ford Probe.
Mom
Now,
had
you got to
one of
remember, I'm
those.
dating myself on what those vehicles that we had trouble with.
All the younger ones listening or watching are like,
They're-
I have no idea what's happening.
Maybe they're Googling, what's the Ford Probe? They were the quarter windows, okay? And they used to have a big old fat seam right down the center going long ways with the car, because that's how you did. So we used to do seminars. And then a lot of the dealers would show up. You know, everything was a mailer. Like you'd send out in the mail, we're having a seminar.
Yeah.
And then they would show up. And back in those days, the industry was, on a dealer level, was not as, lack of a better term, maybe friendly as they are now. So you go to the tin offs, and there's a lot of camaraderie, and there's a lot of, we're rooting for you. You're even if you're a competitor, it doesn't matter if you use GeoShield or you use somebody else. It didn't matter. Back then, it was not that way. Everything was a secret. It was something that you knew, and they weren't real friendly about sharing techniques. So we had to be careful during these gatherings,
Yeah.
because it was really
A real touchy subject over there.
it was
Secret
if
society.
you knew something that somebody else did, but the internet changed all that. It became exposed to everything. So those were fun and interesting times.
Being able to see the internet kind of come into play with that, how did that affect you in any way? Did that make things easier for you, say?
Well, I mean, I go back to computers where you type WIN. Okay. And this is after, well, I came back all the way back when everything was DOS related.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it was just I don't even know what it was. It was I guess it was difficult to understand it because you had to go to class. I actually went to class to learn how to, to operate Windows, because we didn't know. And
And now you can learn it on YouTube in an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, the machine, this has more power than, 50 of those machines or whatever. I'm making up a number.
Yeah.
It was as big as this room. It was crazy. And what it did was the first thing it did was it was able to organize your accounting side of the business.
Okay.
Okay. Before, everything was written
Written
write
in
it
ledger.
all down and everything,
Yeah.
and then you could actually use like a digital calendar. What a concept! Instead of a whiteboard, or write it all down on a piece of paper, on those calendars on the desk. But we never, until, and I want to say, if you got to give credit where credit's due, the first industry, to my recollection, was the Tint Dude site.
Tent dudes.
tintdude.com. He was the first forum. Have you ever been on there?
No, no. First I'm hearing about it.
Yeah. I'm still a member. Been probably one of the legacy members.
My man's got all the accolades on his
Yeah.
name.
Tint Dude. Yeah, and that was the first, I guess, official industry forum
Okay.
that started, and people went in there and I mean, those of you that remember back then, it was not friendly in many cases.
Everything seemed so unfriendly back in the day.
Well, and what I mean by that is you would have a problem with a product, and you get on there, it sucks, and you got to go there, and they screw me out of this, and, there was and there was a lot of people, and there was a lot of knowledge though given out. That was the thing, and especially as flat glass progressed. It's just like we talked earlier, about glass and film to glass, and just the different technologies as things change. You could get a ton of data by reading it.
Yeah.
Okay, now you have all the different groups, all the different categories and different people that you can follow and things like that. So it's totally different. And so there's a lot of education out there when you go to look for it.
Yeah.
Actually, it's out there whether you look for it or not.
Yeah.
You just
That's very
click
true.
Sign on there. But Facebook changed that, in my opinion. And then, of course, YouTube came along.
Yeah.
And, YouTube can only take you so far in training. And then you get confused. Or some people pick it up. Just a matter of how you learn, how your capability to absorb information.
Yeah.
Things like that. But, yeah, you got to give credit where credit's due. Tint Dude is still up and running. He's sponsored by some large manufacturers, and he just chugs along. I don't know. I go on it every now and then, just out of curiosity, to see who's posting or who's on there, and some of the there is a couple of people that are still on there from back in the day.
Dang.
Yeah.
I know what we need to hit up after this.
Exactly.
Yeah, check it out.
tentdude.com.
Yep.
There you go. Free advertisement.
Everybody go visit tentdude.com.
No.
See what it's about.
I forget the name. I forget the owner's name. But there was and I want to give another shout out to a gentleman named Stan Foster.
Yep, I know Mr. Stan. He's in Washington or Oregon.
Yeah, I believe he's in Washington.
Somewhere over there in the Northwest.
Yeah, and he was the first, in my opinion, official trainer. Okay, he got known from Tint Dude. That was his way to get his message out,
there
to the general tinting public. And you could go attend his class, or you could buy his CD set. Those of you that remember what a CD is,
I'm surprised it wasn't a
they don't make those
VHS.
anymore. I think
They do not make those anymore.
It might have been. You might be right, Chase. I'm not sure. But I remember he used to sell the CD packages
Yeah.
for all the classes. And he traveled all over the world also and did training. All automotive. Been to his shop a couple of times. I've shared the booth with him at SEMA for a number of years. And he's got a good little thing going. He's still doing it, by the way, at 70. Thank you. I love that one, Stan.
I hope I'm still going at 70.
Hope I can get out of bed.
Ain't that the truth?
But yeah, like I say, give credit where credit's due. That's what's fair.
Yeah.
And he really started it, and he made people aware of it. And now training, I'm jumping all over the place. I know, just because that's my
It's fine. That's what's good about talking.
This is your
that's how
show.
my mind works. But now training is become, I don't want to say mainstream, but there's a lot of offerings out there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I find that there's a difference between being able to apply product very well and being a trainer. There's a difference.
Oof.
To be a trainer, I think your communication skills have to be good. Your patience level has got to be above average.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. People, you have multiple personalities in a group. Like my trainings, I do basically I cap it at 6 people, because that way you can keep their attention span together. And you got to be able to manage. Everybody learns at a different rate. And I've seen some guys where at the end of the first day, I can usually look at who I went through and I can say, okay, that guy's really going to go. He's going to pick up on it. He's good. Not so much on whatever, him or her. And the next day, it all changes. So, yeah. I train about 75 to 100 people a year.
Wow.
In my classes. So I see a lot of them. I don't remember all of them. So if you're watching, sorry. But I hear from them quite often throughout the year, or they come back in for a refresher class or something, and they're doing fine. Majority, not all of them. We have a number of retention.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's, to me, a dealer is a retention dealer is someone that orders 3 times.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because you're going to take a roll home with you, right?
Yep.
And if you never hear from them again, it didn't work.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge with being a trainer and offering training is to up that retention number.
Yeah.
And when guys come in and maybe their shop isn't set up right, or maybe they're, I'm talking PPF, maybe they're mobile, that becomes more of a challenge for them. Like, how are you going to take that to the next level?
Yeah.
A lot of guys aren't ready once they go through the class and realize that, okay, my business isn't ready for this yet. Then they'll come back to the class, and I'll ask them, so what changed? Well, I got a 2-bay shop now. I'm going to allot that time for the car to cure, where I can go tend another vehicle here, hire another guy. They advance their business.
Yeah.
And that, I think, the shop size and what their overall day-to-day is sometimes prohibits them to take it to the next level after a training. Regardless of whether I train or somebody else, it doesn't matter.
So is there certain things that you should think about, whether you're an installer, owner-operator, sending an installer to a training? Are there certain things that you should think about before sending someone to a training class? Like, what would be some things to think about?
Well, as I mentioned before, shop size is critical. If you're a 1-bay operator, and there's nothing wrong with that, you got to leave the vehicle. You got to let the vehicle sit and dry. It's not like window tint. You can't PPF a vehicle and then roll it out in the sun to dry. You're literally going to steam the moisture under the paint. You can damage paint doing that. Think about it. It's a 6 mil urethane product with it's actually thicker. It's about 8.
Yeah.
It's on the vehicle with all the other layers. It's porous. Where's the water go? It can't go through the paint. It's got to go through the material. But the evaporation rate is much slower than a 1.5 mil autofill.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you literally, on a hot summer day, especially where we are right now, in a black car, dark colored car, you can damage paint.
Wow.
By leaving it out in the sun. So you just let it sit in your shop. And it gives you the ability to knock out areas that are lifting, things like that.
Simple things to think about.
So I get a lot of students that, like you just said, that work for someone else.
Yeah.
And they want to expand their business, and they have the bays. The other problem you run into is the day-to-day workflow. Can you add that much time? Okay. So if I'm an auto tinner, I have a plotter, I could probably do a car in an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Depends on how your skill set is. When you come out of a class, you're not going to be able to PPF a vehicle in an hour.
No.
No.
You might be able to get the fender and the hood in an hour to deliver.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, unless somebody brings you 2025 Toyota Tacoma with a crazy hood on it.
A black one.
Yeah.
Throw that in.
Black
there.
one at that.
Right. It's going to be that'll be a challenge. So that's what you run into. Those are the things to consider as a business owner as you're going to get into that. The other thing is what the skill set is of the person. If they're a window tinter, I find I don't like to use the term easier to train, but they absorb the training faster.
Okay.
Because they know how to use a knife.
Yeah, and I mean that's bare necessities.
Right.
The knife work is what really makes the difference.
That's true. Because unless you pattern everything, which once you learn about how to do install the product, you won't pattern the whole car. You'll bulk certain areas and you'll pattern certain areas, or you'll bulk the whole thing. So therefore, you're forced to cut on the paint.
Yeah.
At any given time. So your knife work is important. My most challenging people to train are detailers.
Really?
Not because they got a great work ethic, but they don't have the knife or squeegee skill.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know if it's a mind thing, but when people first pick up a knife, as humans, as people, we attest a knife to cutting through something.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And you're not trying to cut through the PPF. You're just trying to score it.
Right.
Almost like whenever you get anything perforated, it rips super easy. That's all you're trying to do is just score it and not cut through it. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is making sure you don't cut through it.
And it's always funny, the most stressful thing for the students is the second day. Just so you know, my first day I do patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you guys we went through some classes. Mm-hmm. My second day I do all bulk.
Yeah.
And so I always tell them, I said, you're going to be cutting on the paint tomorrow. And that just spooks them.
They're laying in the bed at night at the hotel like,
exactly.
I don't want to use a knife.
That's what they say. I'm going to cut the paint. Now, granted, I use a rental car. Sorry, National.
Yeah.
That's what gives them the most anxiety. And then I go, just like you said, you're not cutting it. You're scoring it. Window tint, you cut it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's just, they learn. I do a little exercise, and I know the wrap industry does this, and actually it's where I got it from, is you just cut the PPF on a balloon.
Yep.
Okay. The other one I do, if I don't have balloons, is cut the PPF and don't cut the liner.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Okay.
I'd fail. I'd be going right through it.
Did you do the balloon in the class? Did we? No, we did the liner test.
Yeah, we did the liner.
Yeah, moving forward as the academy gets open, we're going to do balloons.
That is not a shameless plug. That is a good plug for the academy.
That is 100% a shameless plug. GeoShield Academy, PPF training, May 21st and 22nd, or 22nd and 23rd.
Yeah,
I will get
like
the actual dates, and we'll put them up there.
Coming soon.
Yes.
The academy is state-of-the-art training facility, in my opinion, for this industry, and it's very impressive. In fact, we're going to go over there today and shoot some more stuff, mess around.
Yeah.
Do that next couple of days. So mark your calendars as soon as it gives you the official dates.
It is on our website.
Yes.
It is on our website with the official dates.
I think we have the technology. We could actually link that in the video.
Yeah, we'll 100% link in the video. I know because the video goes on YouTube and it's also on every podcast where you can listen to it and everything. So if you're just a listener, there's definitely going to be some links. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's 100% going to be a link. But you guys definitely aren't going to want to miss these classes. As Bill said, this is a state-of-the-art facility that we are putting together. And we mean that by there's going to be 4 training bays. There's going to be 1, lighting bay where we can do all of our videos and everything. Actually, funny enough, I have my videographer behind me, May 21st and 22nd. The 21st and 22nd of May, PPF training with Bill Stewart. And we have very limited classes for this. So if you're interested in coming, go ahead and get your tickets now. Get everything straight so that way you can come. But like Bill said, going back to the state-of-the-art facility, we're going to have iPads set up to where if there's something that you missed that you kind of just want to go back to, like say doing a side mirror or figuring out something that you're doing wrong, you know, you could just hop on the iPad, watch the quick little video, get some more stuff. These are all just little things we've been thinking about as a company to try to benefit you guys and better the training and everything, so that way we can have all of this knowledge brought to, you know, you guys as the audience and everything. So like I said, May 21st and 22nd, you're not going to want to miss it. We have auto tent training classes before then, the week of May 5th through the 8th. So if you want to get some tent training in, go ahead and book those classes. I think we only have 3 or 4 spots left for that one. So
Maybe.
yeah, so definitely go ahead and get those in. Get those ordered if you want to come to the classes.
Yeah, I think as this
academy
gains some momentum, the classes will be well accepted, and probably do them as much as we can schedule.
Yeah.
Because there's a big demand for training, like I said earlier.
Oh yeah, and I've seen it. You know, I've seen Brody and all them. They just posted that they're going to be doing some in-house trainings and stuff. So it seems like 2025 is a big year for a lot of companies starting to offer some trainings and everything.
Well, I think one of the issues that our industry is facing, it's like we have a lack of installers. There's a lot of people that want to be business owners and run their own shop, but it's almost like they're not cutting their teeth and doing the basics first to get to that point.
Yeah, that is very true.
Well, you know the old saying, just because you cook a good steak, you don't open a steakhouse.
I do
Knowledge
not
by
cook
Bill
a good
Stewart.
steak. I go to the steakhouse.
My fiance cooks all the steaks around the house. I don't. I cook the other stuff. She cooks the steaks and the hamburgers.
Yeah.
I don't do any of the other cooking.
It takes time to learn. There's a big difference of being a great installer and being able to have business acumen to run a business.
Yeah.
That's kind of what that statement means, you know. And I see it all the time. And guys get up and they get themselves into a pickle, you know. There's many of those pickles that create that. And they're back into somebody else's shop.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. It happens. There's no, you know, what was it Michael Jordan said? You have to fail. I learned more, what do you say? I learned more from my failures than
I did from my successes.
And that's very true,
Yep.
especially in this industry. But
Yeah,
you're
you
right.
gotta fail.
There's a big demand for training. And I think there's a lot more attention to trade schools and learning a trade now than there has been in the past. Maybe that's just the
Like, so when me and Chase were in high school and I graduated in 11 and he was in 13.
I was 13, yeah.
The big push, you got to go get a 4-year degree. You got to go get a 4-year degree. You can't be successful in life without a 4-year college degree.
correct.
And I think people have come to realize that's not necessarily the case all the time. Obviously, education is important, but sometimes learning a skill with your hands is just as important as someone going to law school for 5 or 6 years.
Well, I think the I don't want to get political or anything on this, but I think Mike Rowe. Everybody knows Mike Rowe.
Love
Yeah.
Mike Rowe.
Dirty Jobs.
Dirty Jobs, baby.
Love that show.
All of them, right? And he came as a guest speaker at one of the IWFC.
Yep, the one in San
events.
Antonio.
San Antonio. And that was his message, and that's been his message carried on. And now with the awareness to college debt issues, it's like, look, man, you can go. Look, when I teach you to do PPF, and you take it and you run with it, you're getting, whether I teach you or anybody, by the way, that's a career.
Yeah.
That's a career. When I learned how to tint windows, I watched somebody do my car. There was no YouTube. There was none of that stuff. And then hell, I can do that.
Yeah.
Guess what? I couldn't. and back in those days, he wouldn't teach me.
Yeah.
In fact, and you know who you are if you're watching this, in fact, he wouldn't even tell me where he got the film from.
Dang.
Like, you couldn't Google it. You couldn't, like, look at it and say, oh, Insulfilm, where do I get that at? So eventually he did. And eventually we ended up becoming partners for a number of years. So,
That's crazy.
yeah, but I learned that, creasing windows, burning up film. Okay.
Yep.
I bring that up in the class. Remember, if they're window tinners, remember how many rolls of film you burned to learn.
Yep.
Okay?
Got to burn to learn, baby.
That's right.
We need to put
PPF,
that up real big
that's
somewhere.
Pretty good. That's a pretty good one.
New flag idea.
PPF is the same. Yeah, that's right. PPF is the same. Just costs more. Your learning curve is a little more expensive, but it's no different to going and learning to be an electrician, or learning to be a plumber, or any trade type school.
Yeah.
You gotta pay your dues. You gotta learn it, and then the rest is practice. And practice in the real world, out like that, is moving up in rank. It's time and grade, as we call it in the military. And then eventually you get to that point where you're, rocking in the money, but you don't have a ton of debt behind you.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference if that's the way. I grew up the same way. You went to college to be successful. Okay, I didn't go to college. I was in the military. I was a flight line jet engine mechanic.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
We can sit here
Lots
an
of
hour
stuff.
talking about some jet engines.
Yeah, jet engines. I worked on B-52G models
You.
and KC-135 and air refuelers. Both of those planes are still in active duty. Yeah, I was on flying status and all that stuff, so it was kind of neat. Never understood why they had a jet engine guy in the plane while we were flying. But that's what you did.
That's not a. Wait, why
Yeah,
is
it's
the
not like you
mechanic
could
in
call
there
him.
with
Am I
this
supposed
thing?
to crawl out on the wing?
It's not like you crawl through the fuselage and
Yeah,
lean
could.
down and fix something.
Yeah,
Good.
exactly.
But that was a really interesting times. But I was young.
Yeah.
Super, super young. And when I got out of that, that's when I stumbled into window tinning. So,
I feel like that is a good thing though, and it's something that John and I kind of touched on. But when Dylan and I were in high school, the only things that I remember, because we went to different high schools, but I'm sure that all the high schools around the area offered the same thing. But as far as like any vocational stuff, it was welding.
yeah.
It was like welding,
Welding
woodworking.
was a big push, a little bit of carpentry, and
Yeah.
very, very minor electrical.
I
So
still got the bench I made in woodworking.
Yeah.
I think it was junior high, junior high. Still have it.
Dang.
Yeah.
See, we had all that, but then one of the interesting ones, which I only did it for my freshman year, and then I switched. But they had CAD and drafting and design as one of them as well. So
Yeah.
we had a couple of offerings, but
We didn't have that.
yeah, I think if they had,
We had home ec.
I mean, when it comes to window film, whether it's automotive, flat glass, or even PPF, that'd be some good things for schools to, like a vocational school or even high schools.
That's been attempted a couple times by some other manufacturers. They've tried to tie it into, and I think I don't remember how and why it hasn't really taken off, other than the learning curve, I think.
Yeah.
Now, oddly enough, once a year, my neighbor's principal of the largest high school right outside of Tampa, and I'll give him a plug, Gaither High.
Shout out Gaither High.
Shout out. And once a year, I speak to his vocational automotive class.
Okay.
And it's basically, the first question I ask is, how many people in the class? And there's probably 30. And I do that particular class, probably has 30 or so. My first question is, how many plan on going to college? And there'll be 3 hands.
Mm.
And that's why he asked me to come in, because just like we were saying, you go learn a trade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to make your money work for you, and you don't work for, all of that, that's a whole, that's a whole nother podcast, but I see it because I do it every November.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is every student will write, and I do 3 classes in one day. So that's 3 hours of talking to 3 classes of different people, different students, and they all write me a letter.
Wow.
And he brings me this folder about an inch thick, and they always say, "Oh, Mr. Stewart, blah blah blah," So it's rewarding to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because that's something that we really didn't have. Like I said, even whenever, because I mean, growing up in South Louisiana, you're accustomed to, you're only going to work in certain places. And 9 times out of 10, if you're a man and you graduate high school, it's either college or
Chemical
plants. Chemical plants.
Yep.
Like oil.
Yep.
Oil refineries, chemicals, fertilizer. I've worked in fertilizer plants and
Wow.
everything. But that's basically your choices. And it sucks whenever you go to graduate because, your senior year, they do the, they let you walk around the gym and they got Exxon Mobil, all the different plant people with their little booth set up. But there's really nothing else. Like, there's nothing else besides that telling you, hey, this is another career that you could have. This is another career that you could have.
Be a fisherman.
Yeah, a fisherman. Charter boats in the Gulf of Mexico. Gulf of America. Nowadays, Gulf of America.
Right.
Got to say that right. But, yeah, the only other different one that I saw was there was a Louisiana performing arts thing for, like, background extras and all that. But other than that, it was basically plant people.
Especially out here where you live.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You don't really see a lot of people trying to engage the youth like that. I don't know if it's
I think it's just a demographic and geographic area where you are. I noticed that flying in here.
You fly over a bunch of plants.
Mm-hmm.
The oil tank, the
Yep.
storage, and all of that. But it's a neat area. It's different.
It is. It's just always Louisiana's been kind of a scary area because I've always been under the superstition if I was going to attack America, I'd hit Louisiana first.
Right up
Louisiana and Texas.
Never thought of that, but yeah.
Because you got to think all of the imports, export. I mean, the Mississippi River. We have all the plants. We make all the oil and gas and everything,
Mm-hmm.
mostly down here.
Haven't given anybody any ideas, man.
Don't you do it, I swear.
Right. But you're all right. There's a lot of it.
Yeah,
Coming in, you can see it. And it's moist here.
it's very moist. We're a lizard species people down here. We're moist.
I love when people come from up north and
Yep.
come to a class down here and they're like, that's disgusting. What is that I feel?
It's called,
Just the air.
See,
It's humidity.
You don't need mist systems in Louisiana.
no, we don't use them where I live either.
What do you think
Everything
about
in Florida.
those?
Well, if you're in Arizona, they work really nice.
Really?
Oh yeah, and when you get into a climate that has like zero humidity,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the mist system induces it,
Yeah.
and it makes your skin feel better. I personally,
No, imagine it's like how you felt when you were in Vegas for a month.
yeah.
I was dying, to be honest with you.
When I go to Vegas for SEMA, my nose is bleeding by Wednesday.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
scratching my skin off, right? My body, like your guys', likes humidity.
Mm-hmm.
You bring somebody from that environment over here, they're dying. But everything adjusts. I mean,
Why does it feel like I'm breathing water?
Right. And it's like when people from up north move down to Florida, where I'm at, oh my God, how can you stand the summers? It's so hot, right? But they're the guys when our winter, they got shorts on, a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that goes on for about 2 years, and then their blood changes.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it gets to be below 70, it's cold,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, we get
So-
them spurts down here because our cold is wet cold.
Yeah, you guys are much further north than I am.
Yeah.
A cold day for us is 55.
Y'all had a blast not that long ago, though, in January. Didn't it get down into the upper 30s?
Not where I live.
Mm.
Not where I live.
I knew it was close. It was like the 2 weeks before that, I was in Disney World, and it was in the 40s in Disney. And I know that's just a little bit north of you.
Yeah, that's middle of the state.
Yeah.
In fact, I live on the Gulf of America. At the temperature of the water regulates the air.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So you move inland, you're going to get a little colder. And it's like you said, it's wet cold.
Yeah.
So 60 or 40 is freezing.
Yep.
But when I go to Maine, it could be 30 and it's a dry air, and I got shorts on.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet it feels good.
It does feel good.
I had shorts on when we were in Detroit last year.
Yeah, but you're a different breed, buddy.
That was -4, I think.
We
right?
were,
Well, I
and we
remember
were inside the whole time.
There was one day I went to walk out the doors and my phone said -2.
Yeah.
That
and
was
I
that
was-
Friday.
I was about to go back into the hotel room.
Yes. Yes, I volunteered for some crazy reason to scrape the ice off the windshield that morning.
Nope. Better
Yes,
man than me.
That was cold.
You look like a pro doing it too.
Well, I did. I grew up north, so I've had my share of ice and cold.
Yeah.
So
And I had this man terrified. I'd never driven in snow before. I was cruising down the interstate like I owned it.
yeah,
He was white knuckling over there in
Oh
the
yeah,
passenger seat.
it was rough.
it's spooky. It can be.
Yeah, it got pretty bad.
No, you guys get snow here, right?
No.
About every 10 years.
Yeah, we got snow,
This year,
This
but-
year,
last
but-
year you did. Or
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, it was last year.
but that's so rare.
Mm-hmm.
The whole state shuts down.
Mhm.
Oh, I can imagine.
Nobody's doing nothing. Yeah, it gets crazy.
random 8 inches of snow all
Yeah.
across the Gulf Coast
Yep.
Yeah,
for no reason.
Yeah, we don't get snow at all, which is fine with me. You know.
I don't care to ever see it again.
Me neither. I'm
Not-
good.
not-
I only
at my
see it when-
house.
I see it when I travel.
Yeah, if I travel
Yeah,
up
I like
north,
it.
it's cool.
As long as it's gone on the day that I'm leaving.
Exactly.
They get
Mhm.
de-iced a lot,
Exactly.
which is interesting.
Is there a time where you would rather train? Are you a winter trainer, summer trainer?
I can train anytime.
There's
I
not a
have no problem.
preference.
And when you train in different climates, okay, you have to adjust your mixture,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
okay, and the film will behave differently if it's cold. It becomes more rigid. The
Yeah.
stretch goes away. It's nice if you can keep it warm. We have that problem at SEMA, oddly enough, and the reason is, as you guys know, at SEMA they keep the air conditioners so freaking low
Yep.
all night long because they put so many people in there.
Yep.
Warms the room up. Well, those cars sit in there
Yeah.
and they get cold, and your materials sitting in your booth, and it's hard to get hot water.
And now
out of
you're
the
trying to
public
do a
bathrooms and
demo
stuff like that.
with
Mhm.
rigid material.
And you kind of you have to change your mixture throughout the day because, as you know, at SEMA it's freezing in the morning, and then by mid-afternoon, it's
Burning
warm.
up. Yep.
It's hot. So that's a great example of how you have to adjust your solution, your mounting solution, the amount of soap you use, because it fluctuates throughout the day.
Yeah.
So everybody always asks me, so how much do I put in to, say, a 32-ounce pump sprayer? You can't really answer that question. Depends on where you live, what the humidity is, what the temperature is, and it's going to change. And during the classes, it will change throughout the day, because I do classes all over the country in different climates.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I start doing them here in summer, it's going to be, now granted, that's a climate controlled training facility.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we just put those that other
Right.
unit in there too. So
Yeah,
it
we
should,
got a 3-ton mini split in there now too.
Yeah. So
humidity
that's gonna
should be about zilcho.
right.
Yep.
So yours will be more consistent
Yeah.
throughout the day. I do some classes in a non-air conditioned area. Okay. And those times you have to adjust it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One big thing that we're trying to do, though, especially with John's slip station and everything, I know a lot of people probably see those products as gimmicks or whatever, but there's a method to John's madness. Not everybody is going to understand it, but there is a method to that man's madness. But like the slip station and everything, John wants to get baselines. His whole thing is baselines. Like if I could get you to 0, then we could go from there, whether it be negative or positive. But we'll be at 0.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing, is to at least be able to get somebody to a 0 point. Like, hey, this is where we recommend starting,
Okay.
not where we recommend finishing.
Yeah. So you put with his little stations. They got the syringe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. You start with this.
Yep.
Okay, it's too much. All right. Back it off a little bit. And then pretty soon you'll know exactly as you go.
Yeah,
It's
essentially.
hard-
And
much
when you
harder
call me
for-
and tell me that you put 7 pumps of soap in a bottle, that's not a measurement.
No.
Quit
And
telling
my
me
film
that.
I
guys
love
say-
those. I love those.
Well, I bet you get a lot of calls from window film guys saying, your product isn't sticking, it's
Mhm.
sliding
Yeah.
too much. And the first question you ask them, are you using the same mixer that you use for tint? And most of them say yes, because they just grab a bottle and go.
Yep.
Yep.
It has to be separated. Tint bottle, PPF bottle,
Yeah.
and no alcohol,
Yes.
other than prep. You can use it for prep. not
Or
for
an
installation.
after work beverage. But that's it. That's it.
I will enjoy a couple fingers of Weller Special 107.
See?
The green bottle.
Exactly.
Delightful.
So you've trained across the country. I mean, I remember you telling me a little yesterday, every state but 2 states.
I've been, well, over my career and my life, I've been in every state but 2.
Obviously, Alaska and Hawaii.
No. North Dakota and South Dakota.
North Dakota and South Dakota.
Yeah.
Why North Dakota and South Dakota?
Never had a reason
Oil and gas.
to go.
Who's
I always wanted to
windows
see
up
the
there?
Black Hills. I've always wanted to see Mount Rushmore. I always wanted to go to Sturgis. So there's my reasons of going. But through my corporate years, when I traveled a lot, just there was never enough of a, I guess, trying to word this correctly. There was never enough time in relation to where our salespeople were positioned in the country and the demographics of what they had on their plate to go there.
That makes sense.
Okay. I go to Maine every year, not for business, twice a year. So that's what gets me to Maine.
Yeah.
I used to go fishing in Alaska. I've never been to Alaska on a business trip for go see customers in Alaska.
Yeah.
I've met customers from Alaska. I've trained people from Alaska, but never gone up and, worked the territory and, saw the installers.
What's out of all your traveling, what would you say is the best place that you've been?
I get that question a lot. That's a tough one.
You don't have to say Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's okay.
We know it's Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
The food here is probably one of the best places.
I'll take
if
it.
you love that Cajun, as you guys eat all the time.
Yep.
The regular
that
food.
to me is it's wonderful food. I always liked Vancouver, Canada. I always thought that was a great city. The island, that escapes me right now. That area of the country is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just really amazing. I enjoyed my time in Russia.
Was it cold?
One trip was, but it was.
Because I know it gets pretty brutal up there.
It does. But we try not to go there at that particular time. And I learned a lot from traveling international and talking how other people do things and how they install product. Parts of Australia, when I went there, were nice, really kind of cool.
That's
Just
where I would want
different.
to go.
It's different.
See, I wouldn't want to go to Australia. You think bugs in Texas are big? They got mega bugs.
I know. I'm trying to fist fight a tarantula.
I want to watch you fist fight a kangaroo.
Nope. I get my ass beat.
They whoop your ass. That's
Exactly.
Apparently. I think they used to have kangaroo boxing events, didn't they?
That'd be. I don't know. We're
think
gonna have
they
to find
did.
some videos of that.
There was,
That sounds
dudes,
crazy.
Yeah, look it up on YouTube or whatever. There's dudes that box them, but a full-grown male kangaroo is a big animal
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
because they stand on their tail with their 2 legs. They knock shit out of you.
You've seen them. Them dudes are yoked.
Yes, they are. They're
Yeah.
That's all they do is just run on them things all
Right.
day.
Yeah.
They're jacked. So a caveat to the, what's the best place you've been is kind of,
What's the worst?
well, not necessarily, but another best kind of thing. What is the best job you've been on? Whether that's training, your own job, a vehicle that you really fell in love with. What is your best memory that you have?
That's a tough one. That's hard to answer.
I got him stumped.
That's 40 years of memories you're trying to make him dig through.
Hey, if I had a good memory, I'd keep it. I'd keep it stored away. Stored away for a good time.
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer. So I've done a lot of stuff. I deliver a sailboat. I do a lot of boating, fishing. Spend a lot of time out in the ocean. And those are probably my fondest, best times.
Yeah.
I have a captain's license, as you guys know.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. I mean, that taking the. I used to captain an 83-foot yacht, motor yacht, and we used to take it down to Key West.
Mm.
Took it to New Orleans one time.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. Across the Gulf of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
But just the experiences of doing that has that kind of stuff will change you a little bit.
Yeah, some relaxing stuff too.
I
Just
know.
scary stuff too.
Yeah, it can be.
Trust me, when you're in the middle of the ocean, 83 feet ain't that big.
Yeah.
No.
Makes you feel like a peon out there.
Whenever you get back home next week, I know grouper season is starting. Are you going to go out and catch some grouper?
Right now, we got the mackerel run.
Mm.
We got them. We caught a bunch of them this past weekend. Went out 3 days, just because they're there.
Yeah.
They only pass our coast twice a year. In fact, this weekend is the King of the Beach tournament, which is the biggest in our area. That'll be 300, 400 boats will enter that tournament. Payout on that is $300,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Well, you got to win it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And you got to compete with, there's some serious boats that show up for that.
Yeah.
When you got, trip quad 400s on the back, they're all sponsor boats.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different class. I can do it on mine, and it's a different class, but you don't get that big payday.
Whatever class would allow a P-row with a Johnson 25 is the class me and Dylan are going to enter.
Not in that water.
You probably drowned. We'd be coming out to rescue you.
Is that a swell?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a fun tournament. I like to go for the weigh-in.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. But it's that time of year. We have them every weekend just about, but that's the biggest. The other one is what they call the Wild Wild West tournament. The Wild West tournament, and that one has no border.
Mm.
There's guys that'll actually put a fuel bladder on the front of their boat and run to Key West and be back in the same day.
That's crazy. That's insane. Yeah. The biggest one down here is probably tarpon, huh? You would say?
Yeah, that one down in Grand Isle is probably
That's summertime, isn't it? When it's hot.
In July, yeah.
Yeah, because tarpon run when it's hot.
Yeah, it's tarpon rodeo. I think it's the biggest.
That big tournament they do up on Sam Rayburn over there near Toledo Bend.
Oh, I can't remember the name of that one.
Now you guys get kingfish up here. You get mackerel.
Yeah.
Because they're migratory.
Yeah.
So as it gets cold, they move south. Get all fat
Mm-hmm.
and breed, do whatever fish do. And then this time of year, they're moving towards you guys. They're moving north.
Yeah, that's what our original hockey team was called.
Kingfish.
Baton Rouge Kingfish.
Kingfish, there you go.
Now they're the Zydeco.
Yep.
Should have went back to the
ones.
Kingfish. Gosh.
I like the Zydeco, though.
Yeah.
It's cool colors. It's red, white, and blue.
I never thought we'd have a hockey team again, but
no.
Here we are. A hockey team.
Yeah.
I wish we had NHL a little closer.
Yeah.
I tried to watch the game last night. I'm a Lightning fan. Shout out to the Lightning. You need to get your shit together.
You've been to a few of the NHL games in person? I got to go to one. When I was in 9th grade, maybe 9th or 10th grade, we went on a mission trip at church and went through St. Louis and got tickets to see the St. Louis Blues. Those hockey crowds are intense.
That's a whole different deal right there.
They love their team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, that's
I would argue it was as loud as I've heard Tiger Stadium.
Oh, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Chris and them, they're the
Golden Knights.
The Golden Knights. And, man, when I was out there for my month stint, there wasn't a single person that if they didn't have Knights everything on.
It's just energy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think hockey players are probably the best athletes there are because they don't stop. Other than their little break, they do their shift change.
Yeah.
But it goes, and if you look at how long a hockey season is, it starts, I think, preseason starts in, August? End
Something
of August,
like that.
maybe
they only get like a 2-month break.
Yep.
Right, and then if you go to the Stanley Cup, so say you start in, say, September 1st. You go from September, and say you went through the playoffs and you did Game 7 every time, it's almost July.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like
guys
baseball.
are beat up. I mean, they get every night.
Yep.
Like we were talking about this earlier. I consider hockey as a 3-season year. You got regular season.
Yep.
Okay. Then you got playoffs, which we're in right now. Then you got the finals.
Yep.
And that's 2 teams, and man, you don't get any better, in my opinion, any more of an exciting 7-game opportunity as hockey finals, regardless of what team you root for. That's the best sports you can watch.
Just everybody beating the crap out of each other.
It just never stops. Yeah, there's a bunch of fights last night.
Yeah.
So this series is going to be, it's real physical, and apparently there's 2 guys on there that have a grudge against each other from previous teams, and they whooped their ass twice. They both went to the box. So it's going to be an interesting game. So
damn.
Shout out to the Lightning. Go.
Now we got to watch some hockey games.
I already
telling
do.
you.
I place bets every night on DraftKings.
I never was a sports bettor. I
Yeah,
can't.
me neither. I always lose.
Yeah, me too. That's why I can't do it. I
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah, I gave up on that years ago.
Never was big into the sports betting.
I don't ever win. I'll parlay like 4 or 5 things together and put $1 on it. Sometimes I win $5 or $6. Sometimes I lose the $1.
Yeah, my neighbor has I guess it's whatever you can bet in Florida. I think it has to go through the Hard Rock.
Probably.
Yeah.
Is the only way you can actually bet. So he has this whole thing connected, and we'll be, okay, we got odds are such and such, such and such, and he makes it too tempting.
Yeah.
So $10 wins you whatever you're betting on. So we do that, and let me put it this way: I've yet to be paid. not because he owes me the money; it's because I haven't won. So.
Oh man.
I haven't won since Joe Burrow made that magical run with the Bengals when they got to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Placed a lot of those small.
Bengals.
I placed a lot of small bets because they were mega underdogs, and he kept hitting on all of them. Like, yes.
So you guys are Saints
fans.
Yep.
Yeah, you got a good run there for a while.
And we did.
You
Yeah.
won it. Just
Yeah.
like Tampa, I'm a Tampa Bay fan. That can be a
That's
struggle
all,
sometimes.
But Tampa Bay has spurts every decade that gives you something to look forward to.
Yeah.
We had nothing, had everything. Now we have nothing.
Well,
There's not even like a spurt.
what's old boy's name? The quarterback
Derek Carr.
the Buccaneers.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker
Mayfield.
Mayfield. Yeah, he was giving them. I mean, he's good.
He is good.
He's good.
And we've kept a lot of our receivers. But we're in that.
I know Mike Evans
We're in a
makes me a lot of
strange
money in
cycle.
fantasy football.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to go see Brady and Gronk and that team, that winning team, play a couple times during the season. And I'll tell you, Brady's a lot bigger in person than he is on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so is Gronk.
Yeah.
They all live down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. But Tampa Bay is an interesting town for sports because Florida in general is such a melting pot of other people moving in.
Yeah.
And that's what we struggle with, especially in baseball. Like when the Yankees are playing the Rays, the stadium's sold out. When the Rays are playing, I don't know, I'm not a baseball fan, a team that nobody really
The
cares.
Twins.
Okay, yeah, pick one that nobody's not real popular. There's nobody there.
Yeah.
Hockey used to be that way. Used to be you could go see a Lightning game for $10. As they were building. Now you can't even park.
Yeah.
Well, that's like here for
Hell, you
LSU.
can't even get a beer for
LSU
$10.
football, pretty much every game is sold out that's a night game. Unless it's you're playing a local team in early part of the season. Baseball's very similar. All your SEC weekends are sold out. Parking's tough. You can catch seats during the midweek game against your local opponent. And even like girls basketball, we have season tickets for girls basketball, and it's packed house. Thursday night, there's 8,000 people in the PMAC.
Yeah.
It used to
It's
never
crazy.
be that way.
It gets crazy around here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting like it is around the country.
Yeah.
The fan base. But like I said, Florida's just such a big melting pot.
That's how it is down here, And I think that's what. I mean, growing up in Louisiana, we're so accustomed to how friendly we are just because we are, considered the melting pot and everything. And I think that's what kind of sets us apart whenever it comes to customer service, because it comes so natural to us. We're just so friendly.
It's the Southern,
yeah.
It's that Southern mentality. I could tell last night when I went to dinner. My waiter, my server, she was extremely, extremely friendly. And was personable. Everybody I met has been that way.
Yeah.
He went to Pyran's last night.
Ooh. Oof.
Shout out to them.
They were delicious.
They are. It was good.
And
the service was outstanding.
But yeah, that's what I feel sets us apart. Almost everybody that we've met that has come to our warehouse and kind of met us in person and everything has always said, you guys are a different breed, man. You guys are so friendly, so nice and everything. And it's not a show. It's not a smoke show. It's just it's just how we are.
We're just here. We're just people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry you've met other people that are the opposite.
Yeah, because I couldn't even imagine, I couldn't imagine being a sales rep and just not wanting to answer the phone, not wanting to
Well, when I used to
smile
hire,
on.
it's interesting you say that. When I used to hire sales reps in certain different demographics of the country, you have to hire someone for that area.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't hire you and move you to Boston.
Ooh, no, I wouldn't survive.
Okay, I couldn't take a guy from Boston and move him here.
No, because those guys are assholes.
Yep, they're assholes. Yep. But they're
Maybe
assholes to assholes. If you're in Boston, we're sorry. We're not.
Right. I didn't say
no
it.
hard feelings.
But it's just different. Like you go to the Midwest, those
Yeah.
people are different. You go to California, clearly they're different. It's all over. And that's one of the, again, I come back to that melting pot thing about living in Florida, because you have, well, since COVID, brought in a lot of people from different parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put the Canadians on top of that.
Tis true.
So you don't know who. Yeah, it's just different thoughts, different mentality, different, just different ways that they look at life and behave. I'm not even going to talk about my neighbor.
Shout out to the neighbor if you're listening to this.
You just don't know which one. No, it's all good. Yeah. Anything else, you guys, about the business or?
Yeah, so I mean, from a sales standpoint, we've kind of talked about the business outlook of everything. But when people come to a training class, and I keep saying that GeoShield's trying to do different things, and it's not to the fault of anyone else. We're not saying that any other company that does training is doing it wrong or anything. We're just trying to do stuff different. One of the big things I know that you like to touch on is, how to sell the product yourself. So as far as if somebody doesn't want to pay for a class per se, let's just say somebody doesn't want to spend the money, they don't want to come to a PPF class, what would be one good piece of advice to give to the listener or the audience about how to go about selling themselves or the product?
Okay, with that, they already know how to put it on.
They already know how to install it,
Okay.
everything like that. Just their sales aren't there.
Look at the pricing that you're offering and compare it to your competitor. You don't want to be the most expensive. Definitely do not want to be the cheapest.
Yeah.
You want to fall in line. There's nothing wrong with, let me rephrase that. There's nothing wrong with being the most expensive, because someone has to set that bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. There used to be an old saying, why would you buy a Mercedes when you can buy a Chevy? They're both cars. They take you from A to B. One costs a hell of a lot more than the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Because certain people zero in on being the most expensive. People want the most expensive. They want the best. Okay. The other statement on that is you would never shop pricing for a heart surgeon.
Oof.
Nope.
Ooh.
Okay. And then the other questions that I teach this in my class is like, how do you get that higher price? You know how you get it? You ask for it. You close them. You give them value. When they come into your shop and it's clean and it's professional and it's clean,
Emphasis on the clean part.
Yes.
And you're clean, and you're professional, and and you explain what you're going to get for the money, and then what you're going to do with them if the product has a problem.
Yeah.
And you stand behind that. You can demand a higher price.
Mm.
Now, there's always going to be that customer base out there that's going to shop for the lowest but want the better service. I had this conversation the other day with somebody. They wanted a better price. They wanted low price, good service, and best quality. Okay, pick two out of three.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is all stuff that everybody who's ever taken a sales class has ever heard before. But you can't get all three. It's hard to find. There's companies out there that do it, but some of them don't last.
Yeah. And I feel like it's demographic too, kind of where you live.
And it's how you learned your business acumen.
Yeah.
How did you learn that? I see it a lot of times where guys get nervous when a shop opens up down the street, or opens up down or across the street, or the other one I see all the time is an employee, be it the installer. This happens a lot in this industry, is why there's that gap.
Mm-hmm.
There's that need for training. I'm training my competition mentality. And then they go down, they open up. Well, now all of a sudden, don't worry about it. Keep your prices where they were, right? Work on your reputation. Now it's reviews, things like that. And usually what happens in time is that person fails because they try to price themselves not steal your business, to get your percentage of your market share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. They see you making the money. They don't see behind the closed doors where you're staying up till midnight doing your books, getting everything that needs to be done for your business the correct way, cleaning your shop when they're gone. They don't see any of that.
Nope.
They just see that, wait a minute, I'm tinting the car, or I'm PPFing something for X amount of money, and I'm getting my cut. See what I mean?
Yep.
I just see that a lot on the forums. I use forums in the groups. And a lot of them have been successful when they go out. Some do pull it off, But that whole mentality, I tinted it, they know me, I'm going to go out, doesn't really work.
Yeah.
I've seen situations where, they move and they got to go for a cheaper square foot to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. But the minute they do that, their customer demographic just shifted.
Yeah.
So if you put yourself in a lower part of the city, right, you're going to get, I'm trying to be politically correct, you're going to get a different clientele.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with being in that position. I see a lot of people that work in that lower clientele area that do quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's nothing wrong with that. But everybody starts somewhere.
Yep. You got to start somewhere.
Right.
But you want to do it in a good manner too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all boiled back in, with the trainings that we're going to be providing and everything. You're going to leave these trainings with essentially everything that you need to succeed.
Right.
That's our whole job, is to give you everything you need to succeed. Whether that's the roll of film, the tools, the knowledge, the training, the sales aspect, everything that you need when you leave the doors of the GeoShield Academy in Baton Rouge, you should be able to succeed.
Right. It's funny, you touched on one statement. It's one thing to know how to put it on, but it's another thing to know how to sell it and how you position it into your market. And we talk about that. Typically when I do my trainings, we all have lunch together. And during that period of having that lunch is when we talk about a lot of the sales.
Yeah.
Like what packages are you gonna, what are you selling?
Yeah.
Is it partial
are you adding on a door cup service? Or are you trying to add on a clear bra service?
Yeah.
Full cars?
Right. Yeah, because it's all different.
Partial hood, no bumper, fenders. These are the different packages.
Yeah.
And then I have some marketing materials, and I think you guys got some also of where you apply it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put that up, and then you set your pricing accordingly to how much material, i.e. the more material, the more labor.
Yeah.
There's your pricing. And I always get the question, like, what do I charge for that? And it's difficult for me to answer because I don't know every different geographic area. Like, it's more expensive to get your car done in Southern California and Miami than it is in Tuscaloosa
Yep.
or Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Okay, but you got to set that, and I revert back to the old shop your competitor.
Yeah.
Call them up and ask them.
See what they got on the street charges.
Right, or go to their website.
Yeah.
A lot of times prices are posted, and then set your market that way. But you don't want to be the cheapest.
Yeah, because then that
I
just
don't
brings
agree with
everything
that.
down.
Right.
And that's
It's a
whenever
race.
you get the bickering and fighting.
You
It's
can
a
be
race to the
competitive
bottom.
without being the cheapest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a race to the bottom. Well, you're selling yourself. You're part of the package. Your business is part of the package.
Yeah.
you
Which
know?
goes back to you want to be clean,
Mhm.
your shop's clean, you want to bring these customers into an environment
Yep.
that is presentable.
Professional.
Yeah. Because if I walk into a shop and you got trash on the floor, the chairs are all dirty and disgusting, and I mean that's small things that I think about too. Like, you might buy a chair secondhand and it's got a little stain on it, and you're like, I ain't thinking nothing of it. But hey, somebody could walk in and wants to get their Ferrari done. They pulled up in a Toyota Corolla. You don't know that they have a Ferrari, and then they see stains everywhere, and they're like, I'm not bringing my, $100,000 a car here.
Yeah, when we had our shop, we had a viewing window. So we let them look into the shop and watch us
Yeah.
while we're working. Sometimes that was good and bad,
Yeah.
but I felt that it was a way that it was a comfort zone for them.
Yeah.
They could see their car. It's almost like watching if you run your car through a car wash.
Mm-hmm.
It's all got glass. Well, it's there for a reason, so they can see what you're doing to your car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I see a lot of shops that it's you can't even access where the car is, and that's kind of like, it's just my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, that's how I was when I was younger. I worked at a buddy of mine's dad owns a stereo shop in town, and I worked over there, and it didn't matter how many ropes or signs or anything you put up. It was always like the customer always wanted to just see their vehicle, which isn't, I mean, you spend, now back in those times, a brand new Chevy truck was,
17 grand.
yeah, 20,000 at the most or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, but I mean, I get it.
Those days are over.
A base,
they're
a base
way
model
over.
Silverado crew cab with a 2-liter turbo is 53 grand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. From a customer standpoint, I get it, because you're paying monthly on this thing, and you want to make sure that they're not
cases-
scratching it all up or whatever. But
And in some cases, it depends on where you are in your life. That could be your biggest investment.
oh, 100%, 100%.
You know?
I'll say my truck outside. That's my biggest investment.
Right. And then the same goes for when you're doing flat glass.
Yeah.
You gotta show up. One of the biggest things you have to do is show up on time.
Yeah.
If you tell somebody you're going to be there at 10 o'clock, you be there at 10 till.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old saying on that one too. Being on time is late.
Yep. That's
You ever heard that before?
Vince
that's Lombardi, huh?
You're 15 minutes early, you're late.
Yeah.
Right. But there's something to be said for that. And people respect that.
Yeah.
Because their time is important to them. If you're not there on time and you're making them wait, now
Mhm.
there's an irritation
Yeah.
factor that just came into your quote.
Yep.
That's
the other thing. Put some good clean shoes on, nice
Yep.
collared shirt, be presentable,
right.
just like you want to run your shop. You want to walk into these people's house. And I've seen people, and some people think it's a gimmick. Me, I think it's amazing. But when I was growing up, my grandparents, I lived with my grandparents my whole life. And my grandmother didn't let me walk around the house with shoes on. She was, you take the
we don't
shoes
wear
off
shoes
outside, and you don't wear shoes inside. And I see a lot of people getting like the hospital booties
Oh, yeah.
for their shoes and stuff. I mean,
Great
even
idea.
it's the small details, but that matters to a customer. You're walking into $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 homes, and even if they got hardwood floors, hey, that one thing in their mind says that's a professional person right there.
Right. And they're going to treat my house like that. They're going to treat it when they're doing the install.
Exactly.
Yeah, it goes a long way. Image.
Image.
Goes a
Yep.
long way.
Yep.
Because you talk to anybody that's successful in the flat glass business, you look at how they structure that, and you'll see that every time. and know your products. And don't, hate to say it when we got all of the offerings right here. If you're selling the product, you don't walk in with everything you have.
Yeah.
You walk in with what you want to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it's very critical, as we talked earlier, about the type of product you put on, the type of glass.
Yeah.
And when you do residential, you're there for a reason. They have a problem. You're there to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
When they bring you their car, you're there to get it to make it look better and get some performance, some heat rejection performance. But typically it's aesthetics.
Yeah.
But when you go to someone's home or business, there's a problem that you're trying to fix.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of the product and then of the problem, and then you have to choose the right product. Don't let them choose it for you.
Yeah.
You can get yourself into a problem.
Yeah, because let me tell you, you break a big pane of glass,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
buddy, you're in a bind.
Film doesn't break glass. The wrong film breaks glass.
Yep. Yep.
So, and it happens. You're in the business. It's going to happen. It's not a question of if. It's a question of when.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why the one thing that I don't like is when consumers don't want to gain the knowledge and they will just go to Home Depot, AutoZone or something, and they're like, I could do this myself. And they'll just put whatever on their windows. And literally a couple days later, oh, is that window cracked?
Yep.
There you go. Now you're
Well,
calling
again, now
relief
you're back
windows.
But now it circles back around to what we were talking about before.
Yep.
They see these guys or people on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody knows how to do anything makes it look easy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like setting up all this. You guys know what you're doing. I don't. I just came down here and sat and
Same. That's all I did.
test. You know, there you go. That's what I know. And but it's different. If you,
What you didn't see though is he had 2 YouTube videos up showing him how to set it up.
well, I wasn't going to break. I wasn't going to say anything.
Don't call me out like that again.
I fixed many an outboard engine with YouTube videos.
Exactly.
So that there is a place, but it also circles around to
Yeah.
PPF. In fact, I usually start my class with everything you learned on YouTube. Forget it.
Yeah.
Okay. Not that it's wrong, but it's staged.
Yeah.
A lot of ways.
Very, very
and
staged.
and that's okay. I'm not saying everyone is, but it can be hurtful more than helpful sometimes.
There's some bad ones, and I have seen some really good ones. There are some good, YouTube videos and training and stuff out there.
Absolutely.
But the ability to be able to come in person, and I'm going to continue saying, like, the pricing may scare some people away, but what you're getting is way more value than what you're paying. What you're going to get out of the trainings is way more value,
Yep. It starts you on the path of a new career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Or in addition to your business, which in turns up your daily check average, which in turns makes more profit.
Yeah.
We're all in here for the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys are going to be calling us in 3 months saying, man, I'm so glad I took the opportunity to come to a class. And we're going to be like, we're still here with you, bud. You want to come to another one?
Yeah.
Yeah, just click the link that's going to be in the video right here, and you can sign up for the class.
Yep.
And the dates for that class again are?
May 21st and 22nd.
Perfect. Perfect.
Well, guys, it's been a super fun time.
Yeah.
Bill, thanks again, man, for, not only coming down and hanging out with us, but, finally being on the podcast. I hope it was a cool experience for you. I know you've done some live streams and stuff, but being on your first actual podcast.
Tons of videos, tons of TV stuff. But, yeah, it's cool. I like it. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it again. And for everybody out there, I'm going to say it one more time, May 21st and 22nd, shameless plug for the GeoShield Academy. Make sure that if you want to come and get some training in, go ahead and book now, geoshieldusa.com, or click the link below. And as for that, we will see you guys next week.